Now let's talk about classification of viruses. Okay, so viruses can either be DNA viruses or RNA viruses. Let's start with the DNA viruses. So DNA viruses generally are icosahedrals. Okay, all of them are icosahedrals except for the pox virus or the pox viruses. And all of them are double-stranded except for the parvovirus. Also, all of them replicate DNA in the nucleus except for pox virus, which it does in the cytoplasm. Now, DNA viruses can either be naked or enveloped. For the naked DNA viruses, only one of them is single-stranded, the parvoviruses. The papillomavirus, polyomavirus, and adenoviruses are double-stranded naked DNA viruses. Now, for the enveloped, remember all of them are double-stranded and they can either be circular or linear. For the circular enveloped DNA viruses, we have the HEPA DNA virus, and for the linear, we have herpes viruses and the pox virus. Now, the papilloma viruses got their name from the Latin words papilla, meaning nipple, and Greek oma, meaning tumor. Okay, so this describes wart-like lesions produced by these viral infections. So they are highly tropic for epithelial cells of the skin and the mucous membranes. Transmission is obviously by close contact. So these viruses cause infections at cutaneous and mucosal sites, sometimes leading to the development of different kinds of warts. No? The most common viral infection of the reproductive tract are the HPV genital infections, which are actually papilloma viridae. Okay? Take note, the HPV 16 or HPV 18 is found most frequently in cervical carcinomas. HPV 16 is oropharyngeal. So kamo na bahala maghuna-huna kung yun sa pag-abot sa oropharyngeal. And HPV 6 and 11 are anogenital. Now, the polyoma viridae are heat-stable viruses. They come from the Greek word poly, meaning many, and oma, meaning tumor, and refers to the ability of some of these viruses to produce tumors in infected hosts. The most well-known are JC virus, which is a causative agent for progressive multifocal leukoencephalopathy. You also have the BK viruses, which is associated with a nephropathy in transplant recipients, and the Merkel cell virus, associated with majority of the Merkel cell skin carcinomas or cancers. And then we also have the adenoviridae or adenoviruses. They have no association with cancer in humans so far. We mentioned that the parvoviridae are the only single-stranded DNA viruses. They have cubic symmetry, and replication occurs only in actively dividing cells. Okay. Example, the human parvovirus B19, which causes erythema infectiosum or the fifth disease. Now let's talk about the enveloped circular and linear DNA. So for circular DNA, we have the HEPA DNA viruses, which cause hepatitis B. And then we also have linear enveloped DNA viruses. You have the herpes viridae. The name refers to the Latin herpes, meaning to creep, describing the spreading nature of skin lesions caused by these viruses. So human herpes viruses include the HSV type 1 and 2, or the oral and genital lesions. You also have the varicella zoster virus that causes chickenpox and shingles, the CMV or cytomegalovirus, Epstein-Barr virus. So take note of the acronyms, no? And you also have the human herpes viruses 6 and 7, which are T-cell lymphotropic, and the human herpes virus 8, which is associated with Kaposi sarcoma. And then you have the pox viridae, which are large, brick-shaped, or ovoid viruses. So they are pathogenic for humans. They can cause smallpox, vaccinia, and molluscum contagiosum. Take note that the replication occurs entirely within the cell cytoplasm, which is another uh, exception. Now let's talk about RNA viruses. So RNA viruses are all single-stranded except for the Rio viruses. Also, all positively stranded viruses multiply in the cytoplasm except for the retrovirus, which does it in the nucleus. And all negative stranded viruses are helical, enveloped, and have viral RNA dependent RNA polymerase. Okay, so these are the generalities that you need to take note of. Now, for the double stranded RNA viruses, you have the Rio viridae. So it is naked and icosahedral. And one known virus is the rotavirus, which is a major cause of pediatric diarrhea. Now, all the rest are single stranded. Now, these single stranded RNA viruses can either be categorized to either having positive strands or negative strands. For the positive stranded RNA viruses, we have the naked viruses, Caliciviridae, which are important agents of viral gastroenteritis in adult humans. Example, the Norwalk virus or noroviruses. We also have the picoRNA viruses. Okay, so here is a mnemonic so that you can remember the picoRNA viruses. Pecorna, PECORNA. Okay, so P is poliovirus. It's an acute infectious disease that causes or that affects the CNS. It causes destruction of the motor neurons in the spinal cord and results in flaccid paralysis. No? And then E, echoviruses, which causes aseptic meningitis, encephalitis, and febrile illnesses. No? And then you have Coxsackie virus, which causes the hand, foot, and mouth disease. And then you have the RN, which is which stands for rhinovirus, which is the cause of common colds. And A, hepatitis A. Only one serotype of hepatitis A is known. Okay? And there is no antigenic cross-reactivity with the other hepatitis viruses. Okay? And you also have the Hep E viridae or Hep E viruses. Okay? So they also cause hepatitis. It's transmitted enterically and it's fecal oral. Now for the enveloped, single-stranded, positive-stranded RNA viruses. So we have the coronaviruses, which are named because of their petal-shaped surface projections that are similar to a solar corona. So example, the reason we are doing this now, the SARS-CoV virus 2. Coronaviruses cause upper respiratory tract infections, no, or illnesses. Another, we have the toga viruses. So an example is the rubella virus that causes German measles. All right? So just remember, si Bella, taga Germany. Si Bella, German. And then we have the retroviruses. So example, the HIV virus. Their replication is unique because the virion contains a reverse transcriptase enzyme that produces a DNA copy of the RNA genome. Okay? And the hosts remain chronically infected. And we have the flavi viruses, no? The ones that cause dengue fever, yellow fever, and the hepatitis C. Now we go to the negative stranded, single stranded RNA viruses. Okay, so the paramyxoviruses, examples, the measles virus, mumps, parainfluenza, and the RSV. And then we have the rhabdoviruses, rabies, the orthomyxoviruses. These are the viruses that cause influenza A, B, and C. And then you have the filoviruses, example, the Marburg virus and the Ebola virus, which cause severe hemorrhagic fever. You have the arena viruses. Most members of this family are unique to tropical America. And usually they cause chronic infections in rodents, no? Like the Lassa fever virus in Africa. And then we have the Bunya viruses. Majority of these viruses are transmitted to vertebrates by arthropods or arboviruses. No? Hantaviruses, which are also Bunya viruses, are not transmitted by arthropods but by rodents.